Hello, this is day 18 of reading the Divine Comedy, one chapter at a time. We are on Inferno, Canto 18, and I'll begin by reading through before we get to some analysis. There is a place in hell called Malebolgia, wholly of stone and of an iron color, as is the circle that around it turns. Right in the middle of the field malign there yawns a well exceeding wide and deep, of which its place the structure will recount. Round, then, is that enclosure which remains between the well and foot of the high, hard bank, and has distinct in valleys 10 its bottom. As where, for the protection of the walls, many and many moats surround the castles, the part in which they are a figure forms. Just such an image those presented there, and as about such strongholds from their gates unto the outer bank are little bridges. So from the precipice's base did crags project, which intersected dikes and moats, unto the well that truncates and collects them. Within this place, down shaken from the back of Geryon, we found us, and the poet held to the left, and I moved on behind. Upon my right hand I beheld new anguish, new torments, and new wielders of the lash, wherewith the foremost Bolgia was replete. Down at the bottom were the sinners naked. This side, the middle, came they facing us. Beyond it, with us, but with greater steps. Even as the Romans, for the mighty host, the year of Jubilee upon the bridge, have chosen a mode to pass the people over. For all upon one side towards the castle their faces have, and go unto St. Peter's. On the other side they go towards the mountain. This side and that, along the livid stone, beheld I horned demons with great scourges, who cruelly were beating them behind. Ah me, how they did make them lift their legs at the first blows, and sooth, not any one the second waited for, nor for the third. While I was going on, mine eyes by one encountered were, and straight I said, Already with sight of this one I am not unfed. Therefore I stayed my feet to make him out, and with me the sweet guide came to a stand, and to my going somewhat back assented. And he, the scourged one, thought to hide himself, lowering his face, but little it availed him. For said I, Thou that castest down thine eyes, if false are not the features which thou bearest, thou art venedico caccianamico. But what doth bring thee to such pungent sauces? And he to me, Unwillingly I tell it, but forces me thine utterance distinct, which makes me recollect the ancient world. I was the one who the fair Gisola induced to grant the wishes of the Marquis, howe'er the shameless story may be told. Not the sole Bolognese am I who weeps here. Nay, rather is this place so full of them that not so many tongues today are taught twixt Reno and Savena to say Sipa. And if therefore thou wishest pledge or proof, bring to thy mind our avaricious heart. While speaking in this manner, with his scourge, a demon smote him, and said, Get thee gone, pander, there are no women here for coin. I joined myself again unto mine escort. Thereafterward, with footsteps few, we came to where a crag projected from the bank. This very easily did we ascend, and turning to the right along its ridge, from those eternal circles we departed. When we were there, where it is hollowed out beneath, to give a passage to the scourged, the guide said, Wait, and see that on thee strike the vision of those others evil born, of whom thou hast not yet beheld the faces, because together with us they have gone. From the old bridge we looked upon the train which towards us came upon the other border, and which the scourges in like manner smite. And the good master, without my inquiring, said to me, See that tall one who is coming, and for his pain seems not to shed a tear. Still what a royal aspect he retains. That Jason is, who by his heart and cunning the Colchians of the Ram made destitute. He by the isle of Lemnos passed along after the daring women pitiless had unto death devoted all their males. There with his tokens and his ornate words did he deceive Hypsipyle, the maiden who first, herself, had all the rest deceived. There did he leave her pregnant and forlorn. Such sin unto such punishment condemns him. and also for Medea is vengeance done. With him go those who in such wise deceive, and this sufficient be of the first valley to know, and those that in its jaw it holds. We were already where the narrow path crosses athwart the second dike, and forms of that a buttress for another arch. Thence we heard people who are making moan in the next bolgia, snorting with their muzzles and with their palms beating upon themselves. The margins were encrusted with a mold by exaltation from below, that sticks there, and with the eyes and nostrils wages war. The bottom is so deep, no place suffices to give us sight of it, without ascending the arches back, where most the crag impends. Thither we came, and thence down in the moat I saw a people smothered in a filth that out of human privies seemed to flow. And whilst below there with mine eye I search, I saw one with his head so foul with ordure, it was not clear if he were clerk or layman. He screamed to me, "Wherefore art thou so eager to look at me more than the other foul ones?" And I to him, "Because, if I remember, I have already seen thee with dry hair, and thou art Alessio Intermini of Lucca, therefore I eye thee more than all the others." And he, thereon, belabouring his pumpkin, "The flatteries have submerged me here below, wherewith my tongue was never surfeited." Then said to me the guide, "See that thou thrust thy visage somewhat farther in advance, that with thine eyes thou well the face attain of that uncleanly and dishevelled drab, who there doth scratch herself with filthy nails, and crouches now, and now on foot is standing. Thais the harlot is it, who replied unto her paramour when he said, Have I great gratitude from thee? Nay, marvellous. And herewith let our sight be satisfied." The Malebolgia, as we'll see, has 10 divisions within it, so we'll be going through those in the next several chapters before we finally reach the bottom, Cocytus. And here we have a bunch of different kinds of sinners who engaged in fraud being punished. Remember that for Dante, fraud is the worst of the sins. But what fraud is can cover a whole bunch of different things. Just here in the first Bolgia, they have pimps and seducers and panderers. And then later in this canto, in the second, they find the flatterers. Jason, like Jason with the Argonauts, is given as an example of somebody who was a seducer, who got Hypsipyle pregnant and then left her. He lied with his body and probably with his words too, in order to get her to love him, and then he left, leaving her with all the consequences. So that counts as fraud. Virgil points out that Jason did the same thing with Medea, or Medea, later on in his myth as well. There's two things that strike me about the Malebolgia so far. Number one, we don't have mythological figures in charge of the torments anymore, like how the Minotaur was overseeing the violent, or the Harpies and the Furies were seen in different places. No, now it's actual, like, horned devils that have no origin except they are actually demons. That's definitely a shift from the earlier circles of hell, and not one for the better. Second, most of the sins punished here, yes, they're fraud, but they're connected to sins that we've seen earlier that were considered less serious. Based on the sorts of sins we find in this first and second Bolgia of the Malebolgia, it seems that lesser sins lead to greater ones. Take pimps, for instance. That could have started as greed. We see that punished earlier. And then in desire for that money, that person could have decided to sell more and more things that should not be sold, like people, obviously. Or in the case of the seducers, they could have started as simply lustful souls, which is found much higher in hell, who then became willing to lie and manipulate and cheat, maybe steal, in order to get what they wanted. For the flatterers, I'm not sure what sin that could have come from earlier in the Divine Comedy, but if you guys know, let me know down below. Mark Musa points out that the language surrounding the second Bolgia is much more rich, much more full than in the first one, which reflects the fact that the flatterers, used words in order to lie, to compliment falsely. That's it for today. I'll see you all tomorrow.